Welcome back, everyone. Glad to see you back here for our next session. We're going to talk a little bit more about Proptech innovation. There's a lot of noise in the industry. There's a lot of companies, a lot of new companies, incumbents, products. Sometimes it can be a little bit confusing to really identify the products, the features, the things that you need to find to make your business better for your customers. So we've got some innovators to come up and talk about very specific things that are improving businesses for their customers from the technology side in the industry. So let's bring up our Proptech innovation panel.
Well, good morning, everybody. Andrew Coca here, CEO of Modern.tech, where we build software for some of the most influential brands in the industry. And today's panel is about Proptech innovation. Recently, we launched MLSProptech.com, where we compiled hundreds of Proptech companies, APIs, and products. And in doing all of this research, we learned very clearly that while it's one of the best times to be an innovator in this space, it is also one of the noisiest. So with all these companies and products vying for attention, how do you sift through the noise to find true innovation? And luckily, we have three incredible panelists with us today, representing three very innovative and relevant brands. So I'm going to turn it over to each of you to introduce yourselves and your companies.
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. My name's Matthew Embrescia. I'm the founder and CEO of Get.Realtor. We're the worldwide exclusive rights holder for the .realtor and .realestate top-level domain, which for people who don't know what a top-level domain is, it's the extension at the end of a web address, just like .com, .net. We own the exclusive rights to that in partnership to the .realtor and .realestate top-level domains in partnership with the National Association of Realtors.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me on the panel. I'm Mark Richburg. I'm CEO of Relevate. Before I get into the product and what we do or the company, I just want to shout out for the people in the industry that I think are kind of unsung heroes. And that's the association and MLS staff people that actually do the work of keeping organized real estate organized. So thank you for all that you do. Relevate is an AMS and SSO vendor. Next year we're launching a new product. Modern.tech's helping us build it. Relevate One, and it is an all-in-one back office solution for associations and MLS organizations. So everything from roster management, billing, SSO dashboard, communications, email, text, voting, committee management, document sharing. It's just about anything that an association or an MLS organization needs, all wrapped into one package.
My name is Katie Smithson. I'm Chief Revenue Officer for REcore. REcore is a company that started, it was kind of created by CRMLS, but totally separate from the MLS itself. We have investors from other MLSs as well. We have built technology in-house, including an SSO dashboard. We also have compliance tools. We have a buyer registry that we recently launched. We have a back-end database. So lots of solutions for both MLSs and associations. And really our goal is just to help agents and brokers do their job more efficiently.
Thank you, all of you. And so my first question is going to be to define innovation a little bit more, because it's a very broad term. And today innovation means more than just technology. It could be product innovation, it could be business model innovation. So I want to know, what does innovation mean to each of you, and can each of you share an example of the types of innovation that you employ the most?
Sure.
Start with you.
Want me to start?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, innovation can be any number of things to me, whether you create a new product or create something new that's never existed, or iterate on an existing product and find a new purpose or a new market for that. Any of those can be innovation. I used the example earlier when we were speaking about GoPro. They didn't do anything unique with a video camera, but they found a unique and different purpose and a different market for video cameras that Samsung and Sony and the other incumbents had no idea existed, and managed to create a huge company. So to me, finding new and unique ways to market even an existing service or create something new, all of those are around innovation. For us, similarly, when we wanted to acquire a top-level domain for the real estate industry, we knew that we couldn't compete with .com. We had to do something unique and different. And one of those things that was the basis for our business model was to create a trust and authority. So for .realtor, you must be a member of NAR, and you must adhere to that code of ethics. And that has signaled not only to the market, but to the search engines that when you come to a web address ending in .realtor, you're going to get real information. There's no potential for fake or spam information around that. And once we did that, we started listening to the market and trying to understand what their needs were. Our goal was to create a place where real estate agents could establish an online presence and increase their business and grow. Once people started getting our top-level domains and the domain names, they would say, this is great, but now what do I do with it? And that led us to creating actual websites and delivering an easy, user-friendly website that would allow somebody not only to get a domain that ended in a real estate extension, but also a turnkey property, a turnkey website that they could turn into anything to grow their business. And now our next evolution, we're working with Modern.tech to scope out what it would look like for, right, domain names are annual. Right now, every domain name is a registration, but property listings are counted in days for the most part. So we're looking to build out a model where we're about delivering websites to agents or real estate professionals that will meet their needs, which are not necessarily on an annual life cycle, but could be monthly. And those are the kind of things that we're doing to iterate and innovate and continue mostly listening to the market and delivering solutions that will meet those needs.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic example because traditionally in a commoditized product like a website, adding a vertical integration of sorts with the top-level domain is a prime example of a business model innovation that in and of itself enables that to be something that can gain traction in the market, but it's not necessarily a new technology, and I think that's a very important example. So,
yep, thanks.
Mark, to you.
So I think that one shape of innovation that took place with us is, of course, we've got a legacy AMS and SSO system that has served us very well for 20, 30 years. But there were hard points we were hitting, and we knew that we needed to do a full ground-up redesign, which is a scary thing. But I came to the realization that the days of having like a singular product expert are gone. There are no more Steve Jobs, right? Innovation is a team endeavor, and the genius lies in how you can weave together the inputs of the various stakeholders in the room. So what we did is when we went into this concept, we were a clean sheet redesign for Relevate 1, but taking into account 30 years of customer feedback. We've got 80 clients that we can reach out to. We talked to our client success managers, and we had them nominate subject matter experts in each of the main components of our system. So like member management, billing, events management, education, tracking, and licensure, things like that. And we picked across from hundreds of our users who we thought were the subject matter experts, the power users. We got them all together and said, hey, this is what the current system does. You all know this, because they don't really care how the system looks. We bifurcated our users into sort of two classes. There are the power users and there are the surface users. Power users don't care what the software looks like. All they care about is what it can do for them, and they will go through whatever machinations necessary to get to that result. Service users care deeply about how the software looks like. It has to be friendly. It has to be approachable. They don't care about the complex steps behind the scenes. They just here's my need. Get it for me as efficiently as possible. So we brought all of them together into our focus groups and said, this is our concept. This is what we've received as far as feedback requests from the last 30 years. And what do you all think? And we would do an initial info gathering session. We'd create a design, and then we'd bring them all back and we would edit the design live with them and say, okay, if you all agree that this button should be over here and it should be called this because that's more intuitive for the people on your staff, the Surface users, then we're gonna do that. We made that change right in front of them. And that led them to understand that we trust them and that we have empathy for them and that they could directly impact the design and functioning of a software that they use day in and day out.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, that you can't just assume something you build is going to be used and valued. I think looping in the users to that extent is absolutely critical in today's.
We called it, radical user ownership. And it came to the realization, I don't own the product. I run the company, but our users own the product, and they tell us, what to build and what to do. So we really kind of leaned into that in the design of Relevate 1.
Great point.
Yeah.
Katie.
Yeah. So I think very valid points that you make, Mark, and I think that what we've done at REcore is the innovation kind of starts going back to when we were part of CRMLS. Basically the software that was built was really scratching an itch of the MLS and association staff that were dealing with things like issues like compliance and trying to make software that was out there, kind of fit into this, as a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, right? And so that's where we started building technology to actually meet the needs of what the association and staff level wanted, as well as making sure it's a good experience for the membership as a whole. So that's kind of where the formation of our dashboard came from, as well as our compliance module. And then more recently, obviously looking at the changes that the industry is facing related to buyer agency, that's where the buyer registry idea was born from. And it was really taking the tools and products that we had already been working on and leveraging that to make something that is going to help MLSs comply with the new NAR policy, but also give buyers, agents, more transparency into what their buyers are doing and helping them manage that relationship with their buyers. So the innovation, I think, is not just about the technology itself, but the company, the people that are involved, and really meeting the needs of your customers where they are.
That's a great point, and that's a really good example of taking a need that sprung up and meeting it in a very quick manner, in a very relevant manner. So thank you. And I think we're going to go to the second question for each of you, and I want to talk about the drive to innovate in an industry that can be hesitant to change, because as innovators, we want to push the envelope, but we also need to meet the practical current needs of our customers. And so how do you balance this in an industry that can be slow or hesitant or resistant to change? And start with you again, Matt.
Yeah, that's a good question. Overall, we've had to look at the industry and understand it and somewhat adopt our business model to the needs of the industry. But we knew that if we could deliver a product and a service that either generated leads or impacted the business of the real estate professional, then that was the win. At the end of the day, most real estate professionals, while they may be resistant to change, they're always looking for an edge, always looking for something that will help them stand out. And that was a big part of what we were trying to do, which was to make sure that we super serve their needs. Overall, we had to, in my industry, in the top level domain industry, we're regulated. We normally are not allowed to sell directly to the public. We have contracts that require us to sell through registrars like GoDaddy and Enom and the typical channels, but this industry was not familiar with that type of purchase or channel to buy these domain names, so we had to create our own systems and work with the regulator to get exceptions and allow us to sell directly to the consumer, to our end user, and that has been a tremendous success for us, and we've led the industry and now see other competitors, other colleagues in our space doing the same thing, which is working directly with the end user instead of trying to work through a middle registrar channel overall. So it's a bit about, understanding. I can't think of any industry that isn't resistant to change. People usually like the way things are and are reluctant to change unless they see some value to their business or something. And that's really, at the end of the day, you have to be able to demonstrate to the consumer what value you bring and why they should consider changing from the existing model towards whatever product or service you're offering. We fight it all the time. People are very happy with .com. They don't know why they need to change, so it's incumbent on me to demonstrate reasons and values why moving from the existing status quo to a new model will benefit them in the long run.
It's a great example. Thank you. Mark.
So I see sort of two sides of a hill you have to go up and then a hill you go down. So first, quick show of hands, who's ever had the problem with change management? Like any MLS conversion, any AMS conversion, you think this is going to be a very painful experience. And so there's helping convince the users that this is irresistibly good. Like this new change is going to do so much for you. This new system is going to take so much off your plate. But at the same sense, lowering the size of that hill. So how can we make it easier and faster? And RESO data standards certainly help us out. If we were onboarding an MLS organization, like we can pull their roster data from their MLS and spin up a system much faster than the old, get a database and have to sort through it all. On the other side of that hill is recognizing the fact that change is implemented by humans. All of us in this room are all very technical folks, right? We instantly see the value in going to a new, more modern platform, right? But convincing the day-to-day users, they're people, and so there's a soft part of this that you have to manage and understand that a staff person that knows how to do their job in this system, like that becomes part of their identity, and you are taking that away from them when switching to a new system. You have to manage the emotions involved in that. They will deny that it's happening. They will negotiate for more time. They will get angry at whoever they feel is putting this change on them, forcing this change on them. But eventually they'll come to acceptance. They'll see the light and say, wow, it really is better. But you have to look at it from, again, managing the human side of change.
I like that. Irresistible change, I think you said.
You have to show someone like this is going to change your job in all good ways.
Thank you. Katie.
Yeah. I think that one piece is obviously changing the staff kind of mindset. The other is, I think all of us know that getting agents to change their day-to-day business is a huge hurdle to overcome. I think one thing that has historically helped in my experience has been getting early adopters and getting basically your crowd of cheerleaders that are supporting your product, supporting what you're doing, and sharing that with everybody else. And then it kind of creates this snowball effect of people being a little bit more willing to try new things and take new things on. And I think the other thing that you have to be in this industry is patient, and I'm very patient. I am persistent. So it's, trying to convey that to the team as a whole too, is making sure that everybody understands that these things are gonna take time. There are gonna be road bumps that you encounter, but it's all about working together and overcoming those things and, making the best experience possible. And like you said, just, creating something that it's really hard to say like, oh, I want to go back to that old thing that I was using because it had this one feature that I really liked. I think all of us have experienced that at some point in our lives, whether it's with technology or, something else that we have to, make that decision to make the change. And change can be hard. But I think when you have a support system and, like I said, if you've got those cheerleaders behind you that will help support you and facilitate that growth. That's what you can hope, best you can hope.
Can I add something quick to that? Because you said it perfectly. Users will come back and say, oh, I really just missed this one thing. And that's a factual statement, but it's based on an emotion that they're feeling.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have to validate that feeling first.
Totally, yeah.
And you have to say, I understand how you're feeling about this change,
Yep.
and connect with them, and then say, here's the new way,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's different, but it's not worse, it's just different. And in the long run, look at all the other better things.
Yep. It's basically like parenting.
Like I became a better manager and a better product manager when I had kids. Yeah. Absolutely. Because users are going to do what users are going to do, right? And you just have to figure out how to guide them.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're a patient person, because as an innovator in this industry, you kind of have to be, and you have to wait through the ebbs and flows of when the opportunities will become available to you. And that's, I think, good advice for any innovator. And speaking of which, as our final thoughts as we wrap up the panel, I want to ask each of you, what is your best advice for innovators in the room today? Starting with you, Matt.
Yeah, that's a good question, but I think we've kind of hit on a few of the points here, which is patience and understanding that change is scary to many people, but me as an entrepreneur, I thrive on change. I see that as opportunity. And recognizing those two facts, that with change and evolution, there's always an opportunity, and being able to recognize that opportunity and seize it in a way, but know that you can't many times force the market. You have to work through that patience of making sure that they can understand your product and showing the value of what it would take for them to adopt it. Those are kind of, I think, the two biggest things that I, as an entrepreneur, have had to learn. Well, I've always loved change, so understanding that most people are reluctant to do that was something I had to learn, but also knowing that that patience is also a part of it, that if you stick to your original thought and are patient, eventually that will play out, despite many people who might be a naysayer.
Yeah, you've got to stick with it as much as you really want it in the moment, and you're very passionate about it. If you get burnt out, it's you don't last. So that's really good advice. So, Mark.
So I think I would say to the Proptech vendors in the room, we always talk about the user journey, right? Their day to day, and then months, weeks of using the software, months of using the software, years. There's often we've got customers that have been with us for 35 years, and remembering that the Proptech vendor, you're not on the user journey. Only the user is on the user journey. All you can do is act as a guide. You can help them, or bad design can hinder them, right? But they're on that journey, and you have to let them tell you, where they want to go, and just help them get there. Having empathy and compassion for your users is important to connect the human needs that are fulfilled by the software you build.
Fantastic advice. Thank you. Katie.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on this. So first, just going back to the technology itself, and creating something that is irresistible, that's not the only hurdle that you have to overcome. You have to make sure that you have a good communications plan in place, because once that software is implemented, it doesn't mean anything unless people are using it, and people don't know how to use it unless you're communicating that information. So I think having a marketing and communications plan is really key. I know this is a technology conference, but that's an important note. I think the other thing that I think Dan Woolley is still in the room, but this is one thing that I learned from my years at W&R Studios, is that it's okay to say no sometimes. Just because you get feedback from somebody asking for a certain feature doesn't mean that that needs to necessarily be part of your product. If you say yes to too many things, then you end up with something that's bloated and not useful and will defeat your whole vision of what you're trying to create.
Yeah, if anything, the innovators, if they focus too much on technology and they don't do enough connecting through marketing brand as well, we're at a technology conference, but speaking of cutting through the noise, how do you cut through the noise that we have if you aren't connecting in that way? So that's really, really good advice too. So,
one thing I would add, failure is not a bad thing. We all see this in entrepreneur. If you fail, you need to take the lessons that you learn from that and reapply it. And oftentimes, failing once, twice is what you need in order to figure out what exactly is the right business or the right business model. So I would also encourage people not to be afraid to fail.
Yeah. I mean, I would say one more thing I would add is get feedback from as many different sources as possible. There are many vendors in the space that come in and they find their one, champion customer and they build around only that organization's needs. And then they struggle when they get the next client who does something completely different. And especially associations of realtors and MLSs, we're all guided by bylaws that are run by boards that turn over every year. And so those are living documents. And if everyone started at point zero, there's, 1,000 different, business plans going on in this industry. So you have to create something that is flexible enough. And the only way to know where you can have hard points versus where you can have configurable, flexibility, customization is by getting the broadest, amount of feedback as you can.
well, thank you, and thank you to these incredible panelists. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.